Right, welcome along to Relationship with Food Month. I am chatting with Andrea Marsh. Andrea, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help women in menopause.
Morning. Well, I help women in menopause from my unique perspective of the theory of Chinese medicine. But I convert this into really practical, everyday, sensible solutions to help you have a successful natural menopause. And so today we're going to look at your relationship with food and how it applies to your emotions and your senses via this whole Chinese medicine model.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, relationship with food is quite a big topic, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've all got it. I've got it too. So there's no judgment here. I love sugar.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that most women, by the time we reach our 40s and 50s, we've encountered quite a lot of messages about what's good and bad, what our body shape should be, all of those things. And that can have quite a big impact on our relationship with food.
Yeah, and I meet a lot of women. They come through my door, wanting help with their menopause, especially when it used to be face to face. And actually now it's more so online. I'm kind of lucky in myself that I never had that pressure, either externally or from within. My dad was European, so he was very much about, you don't mess with foods. If you're going to eat the butter, you eat the butter. Whereas, other people in the family might be on the slimline margarine. So I've always been lucky that the family around me encouraged me to eat normal food. And because I'm a very tall person anyway, I've never fitted in the model of, in school, all the girls were like that and I was up here. So I couldn't ever be their size or ever, the advertising of the ideal body shape. I'm kind of lucky that most of that hasn't affected me. Where it does affect me, and actually I've been thinking about this quite a lot this year, and more so when I knew this month was coming up, was kind of how much sugary stuff I eat. And I think it has got worse with lockdowns, and definitely with this latest lockdown through January and February. And this is why it's quite interesting to look at it all from the Chinese medicine point of view, because when I'm like I said, I'm sugary based, and I know you love a hot cross bun and things. Yeah, so we do like those carbs, and you could just say, oh, I crave this or I crave that. But when we start looking at it from the Chinese medicine point of view, we can associate emotions with it. And then when you start putting the emotional aspect of it, then it starts becoming something that you can raise your awareness on and maybe think about whether you want to do anything about it. So a lot of the time, I'm going to throw a curveball now and go to salt.
Okay.
Because otherwise we could talk about sugar for the whole thing. But a lot of the time when I'm talking to women, I go, so what's going on with food, etc. And they crave salt. And what it is, salt, sugar, sour things, bitter things like dark chocolate. A lot of women like dark chocolate as well. All these different flavors tap into different senses. And also, as well as the flavors of the food, is the texture of the food.
Yeah.
So somebody that always reaches for a bag of salty crisps and crunch through them is in a different emotional place to somebody that maybe goes for a gooey, chewy, just thinking about it, chocolate fudge brownie cookie. But the important thing there is the gooey, chewy part as well. And then there might be somebody else that goes more for the chocolate that melts on the mouth, or the foods that fill the mouth with the fat sensation. So I always think chocolate and macaroni cheese, those are so they're all falling into different emotions. And then you've got the person that want to have 2 squares of dark chocolate. And it always seems to be 2 squares. I think that's because it does. And I don't know if there is something in their psyche boxing them to the 2 squares, or if it's actually the 2 squares is just, it's so strong, isn't it, dark chocolate? So what we're looking at with all these different categories of, like, there'd be crunchy salt is one thing, but squidgy salt, like chip shop chips with salt, would actually be something slightly different. And then you've got the gooey, chewy kind of biscuits as opposed to crunchy biscuits, which is sweet. So we start breaking down into the emotions. So if you head for packet of crisps, and this is one of my favorites, because I go, tell me how you eat the crisps. And I once had a client who was a theatre nurse. And so, you know, you're stepping around, tiptoeing around in an operation, you know, everything's very structured and calm. Whatever her issues were, she'd go into the staff room. She'd like, I go into the staff room, I open the cupboard, I grab a pack of crisps, I open them up, and I dun, 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 dun. And then she said, and then I'll do it all over again. So she'd eat 2 packets of crisps. So if anybody's watching and they think, well, that's kind of me, I grab those crisps and I'm crunching through them, you're dealing with built up or pent up frustration or resentment. And that's all the kind of feelings that come under the whole anger area, which actually I have a whole chapter about liver and anger and toxins in my book, and that very much goes into that, because I think with relationship of food and comfort eating, that one's overlooked, because we always think of the comfort eating as being sugar and chocolate and those kind of things. So you've got to understand that how you eat your food and the texture that you're looking for tells us something about what's going on emotionally that we may not have realized. So crunch is anger. You're wound up about something. You've got to release it. In that you're going more for the salt, could be emotional and it could be physical. Emotional would be, there's a fear factor there. And actually the two things tie in together anyway. They tie into, because if you're a bit emotionally fearful, worried about the future and things, that's going to have an impact on kidney energy and fatigue. And salt is a physical pick-me-up for the kidneys. Right. So if you're especially going for salty crisps at 3 p.m, then we're probably dealing now in an area of frustration, pent-up emotions, fearful about maybe not dealing with emotions, dealing with life, you know, coming out of lockdown, whatever's going on for you, where your career is, where your family is. But if it's happening around about the mid-afternoon, then you might be a person that's feeling quite tired and you're getting that 3 p.m. slump, and you're actually getting a bit of a pick-me-up from the salt. So time then plays into it. When it's Chinese medicine, we're looking at time, we're looking at flavors, we're looking at smells, we're looking at textures. So we can really break down exactly what might be going on for you emotionally that you haven't realized by what you eat and when you eat it. Wow. So on the other hand, now my weakness would be a gooey, chewy chocolate, something or other around about 11 a.m. So to break that one down, the sugar, you know, I've got my sugar cravings, but that ties in with the energies, spleen and stomach. And this is more to do with nurturing. It's to do with your home environment, but my home is fine. But it can also do with nurturing. And I think right now, because I'm a single person, it's that lack of meeting people, hugs. And so the willpower to eat sweet things is like, oh, but I just want to pick me up, you know, so you're looking for something comfortable. Yeah. But because I'm going for the chewiness of things as opposed to a crunchy biscuit or a squidgy cake or some melty chocolate, I've gone for chewy things. And when you go for chewy things, you're grounding. So you could be a person that's a bit stuck in your head, or you could be a person that's having to do a lot of heady work, or you might be studying at the moment. I know a lot of ladies at our age are doing degrees. So this grounding and calming and bringing you back into your body comes from the chewing aspect. So for me, the texture's always got to be chewy. And the more you get into melty foods where that whole fat is filling your mouth and giving you that comforting sensation, then actually you are looking for a hug.
Which a lot of us are at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a bit of nurture and self-nurture. And I think, and so my perspective of relationship with food has been a lot different from other experts looking at things. But what we can then start to do is when you break it down to go, actually, I want a hug. And I had a lady via Zoom last year, and we were doing shiatsu, and I was teaching herself shiatsu over the Zoom. And she's like, oh, today I just want a hug. I was like, that's difficult, isn't it, via Zoom? So what we did is I had to pull on my old Chinese meridians and exercises, and there were some Makaho exercises, which are not dissimilar to some yoga things, but it was all about hugging, and you might sit cross-legged and hug around your legs and hug around your arms. And you're really doing it to the point where you're stretching and holding tight. And then after about 20 minutes, I was like, how are you feeling? She said, I feel so much better. So we had managed to energetically create that hug situation. And I think there are so many things you can do that once you've understood your relationship with the things that you eat, that you could then find maybe a physical alternative for. So when the pent up frustration, I'm not saying this will work, but maybe running up and down stairs, because it would release some of the pent up energy. Or probably more beneficial would be some yoga stretches, because I know Julianne, who does Yourself Yoga, has got stuff specifically for releasing that kind of pent up energy. And I think this is why processed foods have come about. If you think about all the comfort processed foods, they are fulfilling emotional needs.
They're fulfilling all of them at the same time, aren't they?
Yes, because we don't reach for a carrot stick when we're pent up, frustrated and upset, because it's not ticking all the boxes. It might have the crunch, but it hasn't got the salt and the fat.
No.
So the fat is filling the mouth, the salt is working on your physiology, and you're getting the crunch. So you've got a 3-in-1 with a crisp that you haven't got with a carrot stick.
Yeah, I hadn't ever thought. I'd never thought about what you might be craving and what it would be showing behind the scenes. But it makes perfect sense, because you do crave different things at different times.
Yeah.
Both different times of day, different times in your cycle, different times of the year, different times of everything. And
yeah.
Of course, it makes sense that to then tie that into the Chinese medicine take on things, that it stands to rights that you would have, different needs needing to be met at different times of the day, at different times Absolutely. Of your cycle, at different times of the year, at different times of the pandemic.
Yes, yeah. We the 5 elements side of Chinese medicine is fascinating. When you study it, it's just words in a chart, sweet goes with spleen, salt goes with kidney, sour goes with liver. And you're just like, yeah, okay, I learn all this and I get through my exams. But 20 years later, when you've lived the life, you've seen the clients and you've applied it, it's so powerful, because then you and I are both very similar in that we do not advocate a D word. And D word can be diet and D word can be deprivation. And we don't advocate that at all. And I don't get into the arena of women who go, oh, I shouldn't eat this, I shouldn't eat that. I'm like, why shouldn't you? You can eat anything you want to eat, as long as you understand why you're eating it and what your resolution is, what you want to do. So the Chinese medicine side of things just allows you to go, well, if I'm craving this and I'm doing this regularly, what does that really mean? What do I want to do about that? Because if you're happy, I could happily eat chalky, chewy biscuit at 11 o'clock every morning. But, then you start putting on belly fat. So, then the question arises, and I don't want to break myself that I've put on belly fat during lockdown. I'm lucky I've got the learning and the understanding as to how I can resolve it when I'm ready. And that's what I want for women, really. And it does boil down to education again, doesn't it? It's always comes from knowledge.
Yeah, and it ultimately comes down to listening to your body, because your body does, whatever structure you want to put around it for understanding what your body's telling you.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the thing that can make our relationship with food so complex, is that we've over the years been kind of told that we shouldn't trust our body, that we should always trust this external thing of what is healthy and what is good and what is bad. And actually, if we come right back to just trusting that our body knows what it needs in the now, we can then look at what that is. So let's say we're craving the crisps or whatever. And then if we want to look at that from the Chinese medicine thing, and we say, right, okay, well, that shows that I'm frustrated. What am I frustrated about? then we can actually address the thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and we're eating the crisps because we, with an understanding of the fact that there is a frustration that needs addressing. And rather than just going...
Conscious understands what you need at that time.
Exactly. And as opposed to this kind of external idea of berating yourself for eating bad food, which never gets you anywhere. It just puts you into the restrict and binge cycle again. But treating yourself with kindness and acknowledging that your body is giving you a message with every craving, with every feeling, with everything, is so powerful. And it's something that gets sort of pushed out of us at a very young age, because we're suddenly told that we should be hungry at certain times, meals happen at these times, we should eat for these reasons and for those reasons, and we shouldn't eat for these reasons and those reasons. And
and then I think you've got to... It is, and I think what you have to add in there is external influences have messed up our mind and body. They've messed up our body with toxicity, which will dull a lot of your senses anyway, because your body's in a mess. And I'll come on to an example about me in a moment. And, you know, I was just, as you were saying that, I was just trying to think back to when the last time was that our food wasn't interrupted. And I was going back to the late 1800s. Because think about it, and I'm just talking about the UK specifically, though it would have had its knock-on effect around the world, is by the time we got into the early 1900s, a world war hit, so that affected our food. Then we just came out of it, and then another world war hit, and that affected our food even more so because we were cut off. And then the food rationing carried on through to the late 50s. So, but actually that was a very healthy generation. They're 100-year-old now. They were that was the last healthy generation. Then, and now the government come into play. I'm slightly stepping onto my soapbox now. That when we came out of food rationing, they pushed sugar. And you think about the last time sugar was pushed, that back in the 1800s when sugar first came over on the boats, a sign of wealth was to be fat. And so then we come back to the 1950s, 1960s, and that's the baby boomer generation. So there are 70-year-olds now. And sugar became a major part of their diet. So the palate got desensitized because sugar was there so much. And I could tell you a trick with a tampon in a moment if you want. clean tampon. But yeah, so, and then you move into maybe the 60s were okay, but by the 70s, as a kid, I remember two adverts specifically. Miles a day helps you work, rest and play. And secondly, ski yogurt, sugar-free. No, sorry, fat-free. And when they take out the fat, they put in the sugar. So what's happened is the baseline of our palate has got sweeter and sweeter. And I think there was some horrific article about cereal having 10 times the amount of sugar in it now than it had in it 10 years ago or something. That might not be true to that degree, but I suspect if we tasted a cereal today and a cereal 10 years ago, they would have different tastes, let's put it that way. So the trick with the tampon, because I know I just grossed you all out by saying that.
Okay.
You take a clean, the reason we use a tampon is because it absorbs. So you pop it in your mouth and it absorbs all of the saliva in your mouth. So it's maybe say have a cube of chocolate, taste your cube of chocolate and say, you know, I love the taste of chocolate, it's perfect. Then you take all the saliva out of your mouth by whichever mechanism you want to use. And then you taste the cube of chocolate again. The sweetness of it will horrify you, because without the saliva in your mouth, you can then get the correct sugar level, and it's off the scale because I've tried it.
Wow.
It's amazing how much our saliva is dealing with all of this.
That's really interesting because it ties in, obviously, bringing my background into this, that ties in with food and wine pairing, insofar as a lot of red wines feel quite harsh when you try them on their own, but when you try them with food and therefore you've got the saliva going, they make much more sense. And the same with some pudding wines can feel far too sweet until you add in the food that they're meant to go with, because again,
and it's and some wines are aperitif wines.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
So you don't have them with food. Yeah.
Or if you do, you have them with, you know, quite specific things like sort of salamis and olives, and you know, and again they work with that, and that does tie in, but slightly differently. But you know, it doesn't involve any tampons, so I'm happier with my
I got that one off the Jonathan Ross show years ago when I was studying sugar. That just happened to come up. I was like, I have to have a go. So you don't have to have a go. I can tell you it absolutely works. But actually what that brings me on to, and the pairings of food, and again, gosh, when we get into the energetics of food and the pairings of food, I'm not even going to go there today, so that's a whole other talk. But what it brings me to is a couple of things that's happened to me throughout my life that I now know what it means, but I didn't then. So two things. One was, I always used to say, if I had a roast dinner at breakfast, that would set me up for the day.
Right.
And the second thing was, I would always eat something sweet and something salty because I couldn't make up my mind what I needed.
Yeah.
Both of those are indicators of a lack of nutrients in your body, and your body's crying out. So it's trying to get it in the form of salt to help the kidney, sugar to, you know, give you energy. So you're confused. So if you are a person that goes, that's me, I'll eat something salty, I'll eat something sweet, and I'll put a sweet and salt in, and how many processed foods are actually ticking the sweet and salt box as well? And I don't mean like hidden, I mean, we could be a fan in our house of some ribs with a smoky barbecue sauce. But sometimes there's another one that has the sweet barbecue sauce on or something. And it's giving you sugar and salt in the same mouthful. And it's because that's what we think we want. That's how we're trying to mentally work out what's going on. Whereas our body is going, I'm missing something. So whenever I get into that situation now, I take my vitamins and minerals first before I try to eat something delicious. I'm not going to say naughty, I'm going to say delicious. Because I think, okay, I'm in that confused state. Actually, what I need is my vitamins and minerals. And then I see if it could, give it half an hour and see if it goes away.
Wow. So empty your mouth and try chocolate and it'll be too sweet. Take your vitamins and minerals and you might not be craving. Yeah, you'll just redress the balance in your body.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this is an overnight thing, and because I don't like it, people that go cold turkey and abstain. I always go, because willpower doesn't last. Again, Chinese medicine tells us that willpower only lasts for about 30 days, which is long enough to form a habit, because apparently you can form a habit in about 21 days. So you've got that 1 week that you might have formed a habit before your willpower runs out. But I think that's only for the exceptional few. So I just say, if you can take one thing away from today, as you just said, is get your vitamins and minerals in. So people are always saying, when is the best time of day to take vitamins and minerals? And I don't necessarily say it's first thing in the morning, only if it suits you to be first thing in the morning. For me, it's normally about now to lunchtime is I take my vitamins and minerals. But if I feel myself reaching, oh my gosh, I want a ... I think, have I taken my vitamins and minerals? No. And I take the multivits, the magnesium, the vitamin C, those kind of things, whereas I might leave extra magnesium and ashwagandha to later in the day. So yeah, it's I think we've covered quite a lot there, actually.
I think we have. I think we've covered the fact that there is an emotional aspect often, and that the type of food we're craving can point us in that direction, but also the fact that it can simply highlight a deficiency of vitamins and minerals. And for each person watching this, only they will know what they're craving and therefore what that might look like. And obviously, if anybody watching this wants to dig deeper, they can come and work with you. They can buy your book. They can all sorts of wonderful things. And I'll put your web address on the end so people can contact you. And it is a really complex area, relationship with food. But I think you've given us another take on it, which I think is really, really useful. So thank you very much, Andrea.
I'm just going to leave you with one parting thing about, if you're going to eat something delicious that you might normally call naughty, don't ever call it naughty again. If you eat it, enjoy it, because we have this belief in Chinese medicine, you only extract the nutrients from food if you enjoy eating it.
I love that.
If you're going to eat it, enjoy it. Don't be guilty about it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, you're welcome.